Oh man, that's great. Good for you. Alexis, are you well? Yeah, thank you. So, any questions, any comments before we go home? Yeah.
I bruised one of my ribs.
I'm sorry?
I bruised one of my ribs.
You bruised one of your ribs?
Yeah.
Do you box?
No, it was a concert.
Are you better now? Good. Anyone else with any physical ailments? No? Any questions, any comments? Alexis, let's you and I talk, because they look kind of useless. Is there something you want to talk about? I mean, no offense, of course, but truly you are. Wolf, anything? Spike? Dagan? Oh. Alex? Amaya? Tayyip? Olivia? Rosalind? Yeah.
Depending on cooking. And heavy as well.
Well, it depends who you're cooking for. You move out of your parents' house and you go to Trader Joe's and you buy a bunch of stuff. And it's fun the first few times you cook for yourself. And then you get tired of just cooking for yourself. You grow to not like yourself. In fact, it slowly grows into hating yourself. Then you go around the lake and you ask people if they're willing to come over your house so you can cook for them. But then you realize you don't know how to cook. It's fun though if you know how to cook. Yeah. Alexis, anything? Okay. Well, we can just sit back and relax for a little bit. You guys have had a long, hard life.
What about the end of the story of Job? Is it not just his life, but shouts to God that he wishes?
Well, do you guys know who Job is? Alex, you do? It's some funny character in the Old Testament. You guys know what the Old Testament is? It's a collection of like 38 tiny little books that took about 1,000 years to put together. You guys know what books are? It's like a bunch of papers sewn between two covers. Do you know why they're even there? So before we talk about the book of Job, at least the story, for those who may not know, let me say a couple of things about books. Terry, how are you?
Good.
Are you well? Please take off your clothes, it's okay. long time ago in Egypt, there were a few people who gathered and they said to themselves, we've had some life experiences. We hate for them to be forgotten. Maybe we should find a way to write them down somehow. Because prior to that period, cultures revolved around the oral tradition. It means that some chap like me comes to class, tells stories, and then goes home. But every community had a special or an interesting person who would come forth and tell a story to kind of remove, metaphorically speaking, remove people from their flesh and transport them to a realm that was magical. I'm not very talented, but if I was to, for example, talk about getting a little older, I would tell you a story in a way that you as an 18-year-old sitting back in your comfortable chairs, some parts of you would feel aged and old and feeble and weak. And then after the story would end, you would walk home saying, man, I thought I was like 60 or 70, but I think I'm 18 still. So the words had some magic in them. They had the power to make you come to life and feel the present moment. But there was something disturbing about oral tradition. We forget. We forget people, we forget stories, we forget experiences. And if you can find a way to be reminded of some of the most important and interesting events that took place in your life, then perhaps you would have less regrets. For those of you who had a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a parent, they left you or they died, you have a picture of them somewhere in the bathroom, living room. And every time you look at the picture, something just happens to you. And writing was supposed to do the same thing. It reminds you of certain events. Those events happen to be very important. And so your brain chemistry changes, the way you speak, the way you sit. This is so boring. I'm bored. Anyone else before we continue? Nothing? What's the rush?
I'm late.
My apologies, yes. Are we good? Where are you going today? You have a date?
Maybe.
Really?
I just let my boyfriend go, so I gotta feel good about myself.
You did what?
I think I let him go. So I
What do you mean let him go?
like,
Like was he like on a cliff and you let him go?
I hope so. Like, that's it's complicated. Yeah. Friday I picked an argument with him.
You picked?
I did.
Why do women do that?
Because I didn't want to hang out with him. I didn't want to drink and just,
He drinks?
yeah,
Like heavy?
yeah. So I'm trying to change my life. Well, I am changing my life.
How old is he?
43. Recently divorced. So,
Oh, that's no good. You need at least like 7 years.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think we trauma bonded.
I'm sorry?
Trauma bonded.
Trauma bonded.
Yeah.
I think I heard that in Bluey.
What?
It's a show.
Cartoon, I just watched it yesterday.
Isn't it great? It makes you feel really bad about what shitty parents you are. I mean, I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. You too, probably. Yeah. I'm sorry, Wolf. You were shaking your head. So what now?
Well, then I was working, and so I didn't answer the phone, and then he blocked me, and so yeah, we did that. And so then I didn't answer the phone again, and now he's not answering the phone again.
That's great.
It's really toxic.
It just adds to the mystery. And then you'll miss him, and then he'll miss you.
We've been doing this for 2 years.
Yeah, well, he'll send you flowers saying how he's sorry, and you'll be in a lonely mood, say, I forgive you, and then you guys will make out. You'll cook. And then you realize it's a mistake, you guys fight again, you'll let him go.
Vicious cycle.
You should walk around Laney. I mean, we have lots of attractive men walking the campus grounds.
Yeah, I think I need a more intelligent man.
But that's not Laney then.
I mean, he has a good job, works for waste management, you know, so, but
Well, picking up garbage on a daily basis does something to you.
it's not. Anyway, that's my story.
Well, listen, good luck.
Yeah. What do I do? How do you let go?
What? Oh, this has turned into the Dr. Phil show. So, any other questions or comments before we continue with the book of Job? Amaya? You sure? Terry? Aaron? Oh, you just got in. Okay. So what happened in Egypt is that they got some clay tablets. They created some scripts like alphabets that some powerful people agreed on. That a line means this and a curvy line means that. And after a while, they added some pictures to the lines, like a bird here, a feather there, a tiger here. And then they put that tablet in the sun to dry. And for the first time, you had writing. But then it became a problem for the following reason. You see, I went to school for many, many years. And thanks to the Egyptians, when people learned how to write books, I began to read books. And I made this mistake for a long time, thinking that what Plato had experienced is something that I myself had experienced. So I became a mental plagiarist. I stole other people's experiences. And when you become addicted to reading, you think that, well, if you read a lot of philosophy texts, then you'll become a philosopher. You'll talk like Rene Descartes and Thomas Hobbes and, hello, all these folks. Any other questions? I'm sorry, Alexis, this is just not working out for me. Well, okay, let me. And then, so that's how writing came about. Book of Job. For those of you who just came in, we're talking about the book of Job. Perhaps the oldest book of the Old Testament. Is that true, Alexis? Huh? Yeah. Yeah. Let's just say it is, because, it just is. The book of Job is about change. For those of you in this class who want to change your life, you want to change the way you think about things, you want to quit drinking, quit smoking, getting rid of a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or getting rid of a trauma experienced way in the past, the book of Job.
About change or suffering?
Well, I'm a married man. Imagine one morning I wake up and I say, I want to change my life. And I can't be carrying, all this baggage. Wives and kids, and I want to make some changes. And should the changes be fundamental, you have no choice but to be in pain, to suffer, to struggle, to fall, to fail, to doubt. So every change requires its own amount of suffering and pain. There's no escape from it. And the more addicted you are to a certain lifestyle, whether it's thinking or feeling, the more pain and suffering will come your way. So, I'm bored. Anyone else? Thank you, Aaron. I hope it's a good question.
Why is it so hard for people to think past surface level?
I'm sorry?
Why is it so hard for people to think past surface level?
Surface level?
Yes. It's like they take a glance at like an issue and they don't think very deeply about it.
So the book of Job, you have a guy down here. You see, Aaron, I'm not in the mood to take your question seriously, so I can only look at it very superficially, so I can pass it by. And the reason is I don't really care for it. Not only do I not care for the question, I also don't really care for you. Terry? And so I can only entertain myself if I can find myself engaged in something that I enjoy. If I like Trump and you hate Trump, and I've tried a few times, to be reasonable with you about the pros of Trump, but you keep dismissing it, then I'm not going to take your comments very seriously about anything you say. There's also the problem of just, are you a reflective person? Has life stopped you from just, in a very silly way, being engaged in things, where you suffer from a good amount of boredom, and there are no ways to distract yourself so you sit somewhere and you think to figure out why things are the way they are. And once that becomes an addiction for you, thinking, reflecting, then you can't look at anything superficially. You want to kind of just open the thing like a rat, see what's inside, and then share your findings with other people, only to realize no one really cares about how deep you want to go into this. First of all, people don't have the time or the energy or the interest. And they find it to be somewhat of a bore. You bore them. I mean, someone asked, Alexis asked about, can we talk about the book of Job? Here I go, talking about the oral tradition. Who cares? Going back to Egypt. So who cares about that? Cuneiforms. Who cares about that? Wet clay being basked in the sun. Who cares about that? And then I was going to talk about the Minoans. Alphabet A and alphabet B. Well, who cares about that? You guys are not historians. You're just kids. You're here to take a class and get some units and go your way. It's not going to do much for you. And this is America, the land of superficialities. So Aaron, good luck. Do you know Terry? It's Terry. You guys should like exchange numbers and meet somewhere, have some coffee and talk. He's a thinker. You're a thinker. Nothing wrong with that. And invite her, who threw her boyfriend off a cliff. So, one of the nice things about the book of Job and the possibility of change is that you have to be very, very, very lucky that someone must like you just the way you are, and someone must hate you for the way you are. That your husband says, "Oh, our kids are fine," and the mom says, "They suck." And so the husband and the wife fight because they don't see eye to eye. You have two characters in the book of Job. One is Satan, Hasatan, or Lucifer, and the other is God. You know how God is. God is non-judgmental. He's compassionate, he's forgiving, he's no good. God just overlooks, he's passive like Jesus Christ. Even if you slap him 1,000 times, he'll keep turning his cheek, hoping that one day you'll change. Someone like Jesus doesn't appreciate time, but the shortness of life. He thinks that forgiveness and compassion are all that you need in life. It's not true. Moses, on the other hand, he understands suffering. He understands pain. He understands what it means to lose one's identity, to have no parents, to be lied to. He has seen death. He has seen pain. He has seen people being held in captivity. So he says, if you do me wrong, I'm just going to do you wrong as well. So, God looks down and says, you know what? I'm going to rest after 7 days because everything I've touched is perfect. And one of the perfections is this guy named Job, filled with arrogance, hubris, feeling self-righteous. He is what we call contaminated by the first really, really deadly sin. Pride. Satan or Lucifer, which means the bringer of light. So for those of you who are somewhat dim-witted and may stay dim-witted, it's because Satan doesn't like you. He doesn't want to bring light into your life. So you will forever remain in darkness and be absorbed in your own self-righteousness and arrogance. Which is a shame, really. So Lucifer is hanging out with God, and God, in his unreflectiveness, something that Aaron doesn't like, looks at Satan and says, "Where have you been? I've missed you." Something that Janai will say to her boyfriend, X, in a couple of days. And Satan says, "I was down there." Where? There. The thing you created, Earth. Oh yeah? Where in Earth? That place, Oakland? Oh yes. I was told that the crime rate is really high. It was number 1 in the country a couple years ago. Not anymore though. Well, while you were there, did you run into this chap whose name is Job? Isn't he great? And Satan was kind of rattled a little. How could God, who's all-knowing, look at Job and say he's all good? Can't he see the arrogance inside him? says, no, he's good, he's righteous, he's sinless, he's this, he's that. And that's also the things that Job claims about himself. And Satan says, no, everything you know about Job is wrong. It's a very superficial understanding of what it means to be a human being. Let me go down there. I'll show you who he really is. Now, for those of you who want to change, the key to change is pain, is loss. Now, there are two ways you lose things. First, you lose the things on the outside. And then once you have graduated from losing the things on the outside, then you're initiated into losing things on the inside. So let me explain. Job is a father. He's got like 90 children. Job is a shepherd. He's got like 50 sheep and cows and goats. Job is a husband. He loves his kids the way fathers do, I suppose. He loves his wife the way men love a woman. And he loves his animals. And I must say, Job loves his animals more than he loves his kids and wife. Okay? So the first thing that Satan does is he removes his attachment, whatever they may be, to whatever degree from the outside world. He wakes up, his kids are dead. His animals have been butchered, and his wife goes to him and says, do something about this. And Job says something really, really stupid. Accept life for what it is. Have trust. Have faith. God works in mysterious ways. Maybe God put this alcoholic in my life. Maybe God put me in this class. Maybe I'm supposed to do A, B, C, D. It's all in the hands of God. And that's what Job does. But his wife, she's really, really insightful. She says, no, that's not the way the world works. What sort of a good God would create such harm into our life? Curse God. Fight him. Demand justice. Don't you want to understand anything? Do you want to be at least a bit reflective, like Aaron said? You want to be passive for the rest of your life, you piece of shit? I mean, he didn't say that. She didn't say that to him. And you don't find such profanities in the Old Testament. You see lots of killings, like, Rambo. And not knowing what to say to his very feisty wife, he looks at his wife and says, woman, we are not in the mind of God, let this go. And his wife looks at him and says, men, yuck. But Job doesn't say anything bad about life. It's like, I get fired from this job. I go look for another job. I lose that. I don't really need a job. I can just work in the backyard. Lots of space. I'll just keep building sheds. So Satan goes up there and God looks at Satan and says, well, did you see? Job is really, really faithful. He didn't blaspheme. It's like, you have someone in your life and they harass you, abuse you, whether it's physical or emotional or verbal, and you keep forgiving them. And so the drunkard, when he or she has a sober day, goes to his or her friends and says, I'm with this person, sometimes I get wasted, and then I abuse them. And then a couple days pass by and she forgives me. She's like Jesus Christ. And that's what Satan tells God, and that's what God tells Satan. You know, that I have messed up his life, but Job remains untouched. And God is very proud of his creation, Job, when he says, see, he has not blasphemed, he is truly righteous. But Satan understands something. If you want people to change, touch them. Mess with them about the things they believe in. Take their health away. Give them a pain that's embodied. You know, if I get this news that my wife and half a dozen kids were ran over by an 18-wheeler, I'll be sad. I'm not going to end my life. Probably walk around the lake, find someone, and have a good time with them. I will forget. I'm not being mean, I'm not being crude, I'm just telling you how human beings function. You have any questions? I'm really bored now. Alex? Hello?
So then would you say that Job is neutral or?
No, Job is just stupid. But he's not going to stay that way for too long. And Satan looks at God and says, let me touch him. Let me go down there and have him really experience what pain is. And a pain that just doesn't go away, can't be forgotten. And God says, fine, just don't kill him, because if you kill him, then, he won't suffer. And if he doesn't suffer, he won't learn. And if he doesn't learn, he won't change. So make sure you know that. That you know how much pain, to what degree, for how long. And Satan says, oh yes, I've done this before, I'm a pro. So Job wakes up, and he's got cancer stage 4. Can't eat, can't talk, can't lay in bed comfortably. And when you're sick, you yourself are sick, and a good amount of pain, you don't think about your wife. You don't think about your kids. You think about time. You think about all the things you should have done, but you didn't. And when you're in pain and you can't eat, you think about food differently. You think about your health differently. You think about all the time you spent on your kids. What a waste they are. Your companions. It's really quite a mess. Now, then Job does something he's never done before. You know how you guys once in a while raise your hand and you say to me, what you said was inappropriate and I demand justice, clarification? Job, for the first time in his life, has lost complete control. And that's the other thing you need to understand. As long as you have power to control your life, you're not going to change. Good teachers, really, really good teachers, always create an environment where you lose power. And then you will learn how to beg. Anyone else, any questions or comments before we continue with all this nonsense? Yes, Dagan. Your hand went up. Okay. Alex? Casera? You're taking notes on the phone, huh? Excellent. Oh, man. Andres.
Do you have any advice on how to survive this?
Say again?
Do you have any advice of living in this new world?
Good luck. No advice. Sorry. Any other questions before we go home? Amaya? Amaya, when you get older, you lose abilities. Not only can I not see you, I can't even hear you.
My sister is a psychology major, and yesterday she was telling me about this experiment that Stanford had did, where students signed up to essentially be prisoners
Right.
and have like prison guards, and I guess like in the midst of that, they went crazy, and like also the people were playing like prison guards. They had like this sense of power over them, and that they like abused and like basically abused the power with the students who really were like actually prisoners. And she basically asked if I thought it was ethical. I said no. I wanted to ask if you thought, do you think that's ethical for them to not do?
I had gone to Costco some years ago. They had these boxes of tomatoes. Each box had, I think, 6 tomatoes. So I just put an extra 2 in there. It's Costco. It's 2 tomatoes. Am I stealing? Yeah, but who cares? It's Costco. So as I'm checking out Terry, this woman looks at the box, looks at me, looks at the box, and take the tomatoes away. Takes 2 tomatoes away. And I say to myself, what the hell is wrong with her? Is she like stupid? And the truth is, she is. She's stupid. And I suppose Andres would ask, can you explain? No, I mean, you can't explain stupidity. I was doing Costco a favor. The tomatoes were going bad. She plays this role as if Costco loves her, and she loves Costco. And she's there to defend Costco. And then she categorized me as a thief from the Middle East. And I sit back and I say, this is a fucked up woman. I feel bad for her husband. So I waited for her outside. Thanked her for her honesty. I go to school, I play this game, they give me some degrees, I apply for jobs, I spit out some nice words. They call me and say, we'd like to offer you this position. Okay, come to class. People call me professor, and I buy into it. And I bind to the fact that I went through all these schooling for goddamn degrees, power, knowledge, wisdom, and then students. Professor, I have a question. They play a role, I play a role. And in the midst of someone gaining power and another group of people losing power, it's a very intoxicating feeling. There's a movie about the experiment you were talking about, and the movie is called The Experiment. It's actually a really, really good movie. You should watch it. And one of the interesting things about the movie, or even the book and The Experiment, was that you have a guy who is religious. And he's a Christian, not just religious, he's Christian. So that makes it worse. My apologies to the Christians in this room. But Aaron would agree with me that you're only Christian in name. Right, Aaron? Good job. It's always nice to agree with your professor. You'll become more likable. And so he lives a very impoverished life. He's got no one in his life, no one really pays him attention. So he's really poor, within as well as without. And he reads somewhere that someone's going to give him $1,000 for a couple of days of doing ABCD. And so he signs up. It's really fun. And then you have a hippie who's all about just going with the flow and being passive and being kind and, you know. And for the first time, this Christian gets power. He's not a prisoner, he's a guard. That's the role he plays. And man, he has an erection when he pushes people around. I'm not talking metaphorically. In the movie, when you watch, he actually has an erection. Because that's what power does to you. And you forget the fact that you're just this human being who eats and shits. And sometimes you find life very just not digestible. You assume that just because you have power, you can overcome all sorts of things. The hippie keeps, tries to be rational, to talk to people, knock some sense into the thick skull, but nothing happens. And eventually beats up the Christian. And I suppose the point I'm trying to make, if you want to survive society, you have to play a role. You have to pay attention and figure out who has power, who doesn't have power, and where exactly you stand. In this class, you don't really have very much power. I mean, you can think otherwise, that's fine. I mean, I don't know if you have a job. If you have a job and you make money, and with that money you buy food, and you put gas in your car, and you pay rent, your boss has power over you. You have no choice but to bend over backwards. Every time he says to you, do ABCD, you have no choice. Is he playing a role? Yeah. Are you playing a role? Yeah. Do you want to overcome playing those roles? Well, you could, but the end result is that you won't have a paycheck. And you won't be able to pay rent. So to live in society, you need to figure out, who what one is, what their position is, and what you want to do with that. Right now, where you are at the age of 18 in this class, you have zero power. You should put that to test. Don't come to class. Don't do the assignments. It's okay. I don't really mind. At my age, I relish in giving Fs. Now, you may come to my office and say, Amir, your society gave you this role and society gave you these degrees. Why do you take them seriously? That's a game we all have to play. You could go off grid Pack your stuff when you go home today. Go to Yosemite, just walk around like a wild animal. Just live there. No roles to play there. You can talk to trees. And steal food from campers. And then get caught and get beaten up. Dig in. Anyone else? You guys are so boring. You're not playing your role right. Rosalind, anything? You sure? Yeah.
So then,
Am I saying your name right, Janai?
I guess. So back to Job,
Yes.
would you say that other people's perspective, like other people's perspective of you, are other people project their perspective of, like the devil said, watch, I'll make him this horrible guy, he's arrogant, he's gonna talk mess about you. He kept picking and picking and picking. And that was because that was the devil's perspective, and God's perspective was like, no, it's gonna be good, da, da, da. So do other people's projection of their perspective of you make a difference?
I can't claim to have understood your question completely, but let's just talk about projection for a moment. You have children, and you've lived in Oakland, and you're a woman of color. You know the history of America a little bit. There are fears in you that your kids don't have. You've also know the nature of men better than your kids. I just say they're both girls. Are they? Okay. Maybe you don't like the neighborhood in which you live. Maybe you see things that kids shouldn't see, but you're an adult. You have the ability to process things slightly better. So when you see your kids talking to some person who has a certain way of speaking English, all the pent-up fears that live inside you all of a sudden come forth like a tsunami. And you go to your child, you grab her arm rather harshly, and you pull them. You don't ask their permission to the house. And to offset the situation, you say, "Can you wash the dishes, please?" And instead of listening to some bad music, you put some, I don't know, a different kind of music. Do you have power over your kid? Absolutely. Do you have power because you've seen things that they haven't? Yes. Do you have power because, to some extent, you know the impact of some of the things they're experiencing, and the impact is going to be negative? Absolutely. Are you projecting? Well, yes. Do you know how their future is? Not completely. Sometimes a saint can become a sinner, and a sinner can become a saint. None of us can look too far ahead, but it's mostly immediate. Now, is that projection on your part, an imposition on your kids, having power over your kids, dragging them into the house, maybe slapping them, spanking them, giving them timeouts, taking away their privileges? Is that good for them? Yeah. Is it a good projection to have? Yes. Is it fear-laced? Yes. Are your fears revolving around the realities of life? Yes. Should your kids stand up to you? They will, because they're kids. Will you push them down some more? Absolutely. Will you make them feel bad? Definitely. Will you make them feel incompetent? Yeah. It's to your advantage. So the question really is, who's projecting what? In projection, someone has power. I mean, look, I'm an immigrant. my parents, my father came here at the age of 50, bought a car wash, and started washing cars for the next 20 some odd years. He still has it. At the age of 90, he still washes cars. Okay. And some weekends I go there to help him out. Now, what exactly was he projecting on me? He sent me to India at the age of 8, at the age of 11. 11. I wasn't even old enough to wipe my ass. But he sends me there nevertheless. Why? Living in Iran was hopeless. It was hopeless for him at least. I mean, I was having lots of fun. The entire street was my friend. You know, you walk to school, you walk back home, you go to the shop and you say, my last name is Sabzavari, my father will pay you when he comes back. That's how your word means everything, you know. And so he ships us to India. Why? Well, he was projecting a few things, that I want my kids to be better than me. Well, what was wrong with him? Nothing really, when I think of it now. You know, one income, a tiny little house, managed to keep alive 5, 6, 7 people. You know, good harmony, I guess, every single day. He's good-natured. Your mom is good-natured. You ship us to India for what reason? Fear. And that's what happens as parents to all of us. You know the ills of public education, so you eat less so you can save some more money to send your kids to private school. That's what you do. And then he comes to realize, well, India is not working out for us. He wants an 11-year-old kid to be like an Albert Einstein. I'm a kid. I want to go out there and have fun. Like break into shops and steal things. Right? We go to Davis. For what? Become better students. That doesn't work out. So you know what he does? He sells everything. Him and my mom. And they come to America. Immigrants. Nothing. They don't speak English. They still don't. You know, I remember when sometimes our customers would look at my father and say all these nasty things about Middle Easterners. And because my father didn't speak English, he would say, thank you. Now, if you have a business here and you have no choice but to please your customers, you can't talk back because you will lose your customers. What are you going to do in America as an immigrant? And your legal status is illegal, really. You don't have one. And so what I'm trying to suggest is that from the moment that kids are born, parents keep projecting, and you have no choice. Now, forget parents, let's talk about us in this class. I'm not going to project my fantasies on people I don't like in this class. I'm not going to have any projections. And by projection, I mean, I'm not going to make someone responsible. I'm not going to demand anything from anyone I don't like very much. Sit in the back and fall asleep. So part of projection means you have to be of some use to me. Maybe you have great questions that you ask every time you come to class. Maybe you don't ask any questions, but you're very attentive when you sit and listen. Maybe you go home and you come back on Thursday and say, you know, what you said to me on Friday, it made a lot of sense. I was thinking about it. Say, okay. Well, you know, that went into her savings account. She was thinking about it. So then you have the projection of companies. I don't know if you know Henry Ford. Henry Ford, he started selling cars, but before that, he was making toasters. And then what happened was that he put out his toasters in JCPenney's and Macy's and is it Neiman Marcus? Yeah. If they sell toasters. No? Whatever. And so he came to realize that he's not selling enough. So you know what he did? He looked at his workers. And he looked at them and said, I'm going to put my toasters on sale just for you guys. He didn't tell them that we're not selling enough. But he had this fantasy in his head. if I can sell an idea, project an idea to the people who work for me, if I can make a profit, not maybe a buck, but maybe just a quarter, the quarters will add up. And so all these poor people, who are working like 15-hour shifts, and they were not making very much money. He said, I can loan you some money. With the money I loan you, you buy the toaster. The point is, who's projecting what and who's demanding what from you? Do they care for you? And if they care for you, what parts of you do they care for? When you go to a party, go this weekend. I mean, you're a single woman, go this weekend to a party. And when there are lots of men out there, they're going to be projecting. Is she easy? Will it be like an hour or 2 hours before I'm in bed with her? Projection. But when you go somewhere, perhaps places that Aaron likes to frequent, where people are not superficial, you're going to say, okay, if I'm going to take the trouble to go all the way and be with her up close and personal, will she have a brain? Is she going to speak eloquently? Is she going to be present? Do I really want to invest my time and energy getting to know someone from scratch? That's another kind of projection. So if we can but project, your future, you're projecting way into the future. It's nothing but a certain set of stories. Whether or not they come true, who the hell knows? Olivia? Anything? Go ahead.
Can you talk about the Dark Ages?
I'm not quite sure if they're completely dark. So what had happened so Jesus dies, okay? But before he dies, he tells his disciples, I'll come back tomorrow. And they wait, and they wait, and they wait. And they say, man, this guy is not coming back. Maybe he lost his way. He didn't have the right GPS, And so they said, well, this is no good. And so they begin to write some books. They waited for this guy to come back. He didn't. So the oldest is the Gospel of Mark, about maybe 40 years after him. And then other books. But they still had this glimmer of hope that this guy is going to come back, but he didn't. And they said, well, maybe it wouldn't be a bad place for us to create a building of sorts, to go there once a week or twice a week and just read. And they did. And so they built churches. And with Constantine, around the 3rd century or so, Roman was a huge empire at that time. And so paganism was out the window and Christianity was the new religion. You have politics, you have immensely powerful people, and you have new converts, intense and passionate. And what you have, like football, when you blitz the quarterback or the opposing team and they fall apart, they begin to blitz the public, and all of a sudden within just a few years, everyone becomes a Christian. Now, one of the things about anyone who has a tremendous amount of power is the following. One of the nice things about Costco is that, let's say you go to Chinatown and there are all these tiny shops there, right? And let's say the board members come together and they say, it's okay, we can have a Costco here. Now, Costco is like a whale. It's going to eat all of those tiny shops. And what you have is a lot of vacant buildings now. And that was Christianity. It hovered above people's lives. It told them what sex is, what life is, what sin is, what thinking is, what they need to do with their life, all that stuff. It occupies a good amount of space inside you. Now, that is called the Dark Ages. Now, one of the things about powerful people or powerful organizations is that it swallows up everything. Politics, it needs to serve religion. People need to serve religion. Sex needs to serve religion. The way you live your life needs to serve religion. So just in case there is a brand new scientific discovery that may be opposing the church doctrine, well, you're talking about a rebellious force like Ben-Hur or El-Cid or Malcolm X that's going against the status quo. So the church does whatever it can to demolish this new force. And it did for 1,000 years. Are you straight or gay? The Bible says, Adam and Eve, there is no in between. Are you a saint or a sinner? You're a sinner. That's what the Bible says. You're in love. You want to have sex? No. First get married. You lose your name, you have nothing left. Your reputation. Now, if you look at the Dark Ages, is it difficult? Yes. Is it intrusive, imposing? Yes. Is it controlling? Yes. Does it give meaning to people? Yeah. Does it make life comfortable? Emotionally, yes. Not so much physically, but emotionally, yes. Okay, so your husband doesn't look at you. He brings in the paycheck. You buy food. What the hell more do you need? You want to fall in love? Have some kids. You can't have kids? Well, be good to your parents. What do you want to do? Divorce? And then what? Especially if you live in a society that considers a divorcee a whore, what are you going to do? Well, you're going to suffer in silence. How much power do you have? Not much. You make life work. Thick skin. Here now. You can't talk to anyone anymore. They'll complain. You go around the lake, you look at someone strangely, they'll beat your ass. Everybody's thin-skinned. You can't even tell students anymore, hey, listen, you haven't been in class for like 5 months. You haven't done any work. What the fuck are you doing here? Oh, it's my right. Oh, okay, fine. So remember Dark Ages. It's this idea that people don't have the right to think. They can't be creative. And to some extent, when you look at the artwork, all the arts that you see for 1,000 years were devoted to kind of delivering the Christian message. People can't read, people can't write. You go to church and there's a story of Jesus Christ right there on the wall, on the painted glasses. Beautiful. Then a few things begin to happen. Is it true that during Dark Ages you can't feel your own existence? Yeah. Do you much care? No, because, it's not advertised like that. 20 years ago, nobody had a journal. Just live life, man. You talk to your parents, you talk to your friends. Now everybody has a journal as if like they have something to say. Like their life is extraordinary, either in a positive or negative way. Shut the fuck up, just live your life. You have nothing to say. Okay. And then came the Renaissance. And Renaissance was interesting because for the first time for us human beings, you were less focused on God and more focused on what it means to be you. Now, the problem with the Renaissance is that you have to get rid of, it's like, look, you live with your parents. They pay for your food, for your laundry, they put a roof over your head. They just say, listen, you got to be home by 10. And no cell phones. And no laptops or lap dances. And when we have dinner, you got to sit with us and have dinner. No smoking and no drinking, and you can't invite friends. They pay for your school, they buy you a car, you can't date until you're married and all that. You know, you're married and then you start dating. Right, Terry? So that's the Dark Ages. But your life is paid for. Renaissance. Mom, I'm 18. I think it's time for me to go out there and explore what it means to be me. Oh, really? Yeah, that's Renaissance. So you go out there and you get yourself a job. But before you do that, say, okay, I want to get myself a place. How much is a one bedroom in Oakland? About 3,000. Let's say 2,000. It's a relatively nice neighborhood. I said, man, 2,000. Well, that's not going to work out too well. You ask for your parents, they say, this is your $2,000. You're not getting a dime from us. So you go to Home Depot, you get a job. You drop out of school, of course. And because you can't make enough money, because they're not going to give you a full-time job because that's going to cost them health benefits and all that. So you also get a job at Home Depot. I mean, In-N-Out. Maybe Costco. It's not bad. But you still can't do almost 3,000 rent with food and gas and electricity and all that. So you say, maybe I should get a roommate. You do. Like 4 of you in a tiny little studio. But you're experiencing what it means to be you. Emotions you never had before all of a sudden come up. Can't process them. You're always angry. And you realize you're 30, you have no savings. Your life is pathetic. Your parents won't talk to you. You don't have a car. You have no school, no education. Maybe you got banged up and you got 2 kids. You're just fucked. This is the outcome of Renaissance, America. Our escape from the Dark Ages. Does it have benefits? Absolutely. Do people have the power to think differently, be different, express themselves in ways that we couldn't for 1,000 years? Yeah. Escape from religion? Yeah. Do you have more power as an individual? Yes. Is life better? In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. So they're always going to be, light and dark, regardless of the age. Whether it's Renaissance, whether it's Baroque, it doesn't matter. Yeah. What time is it? Okay, we have 10 minutes. I'm just kidding. Do you have any, any other questions or comments before we go? Terry? Aaron? Rosalind? Wolf? Spike? Well, it's been a good day. See you guys on Thursday. Thank you.